We are live.
Thank you, Rigo. With that, Brian, next item.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, item 14A regarding solid waste and recycling services franchise agreement. I want to give you a real quick background before Kyle got into his presentation.
And Brian, before you start,
Yes.
I
Oh, sorry.
should address the assertions about a conflict, if I may. Joe, are you okay with that?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Dick, can you walk through the process, please?
Certainly. Anytime conflict of interest arises, there's somewhat of a confusion sometimes between perception and lawful standards. And so, under the Fair Political Practice Commission in California, they've established those lawful standards whereby an elected official can't violate those. If it does so, they're the regulatory body that can prosecute you for violation of the standards of the Fair Political Practices Act or Commission, which relates to economic interest in contracts or other actions taken by a legislative or elected body. In this particular situation, you have asked twice now over the last couple of years to have us contact the Fair Political Practice Commission and seek a formal legal opinion with respect to whether or not you had a lawful conflict of interest. And in both cases, and in both times, they determined that you do not have a legal conflict of interest and therefore could participate with respect to this process. Secondly, there is this general perception of conflict of interest for purposes of public perception or the idea that somehow one is biased. And the public as a whole is entitled to have other elected officials deliberate in a fair and unbiased manner regarding any given matter. That is your decision to reach and your decision to determine whether you can fairly, anybody for that matter on the council, to participate in a given matter. It is not the city attorney's job, nor any individual has the right to disqualify you in terms of your participation. That is either done by the Fair Political Practice Commission or it's done by a court of law. So again, that decision is your decision and no one else's. But with respect to the lawful side of this, there is no conflict of interest, and the FPPC has so determined that.
And thank you for that explanation. And the pages that are in our binder are yellow pages in regards to conflict of interest. It might be of interest and or helpful to some of the public just to know a couple of those basic questions that we ask ourselves or that we are asked to determine if we have a financial conflict. Could you articulate those, please?
I don't have them in front of me.
Right here.
I think it's,
Those are the 1,000-foot radius circles.
Are you talking radius or are you talking about, I don't know what language we're talking about.
this four-step analysis.
I don't have the radius.
Thought you'd have a copy of it.
I don't have a copy in front of me.
Okay, I think,
If every council member receives a staff analysis that the city attorney's staff has provided to council members to help make a determination whether they have a conflict based on FPPC regulations.
so these are, I'm assuming, just the basic questions that we review and determine to decide if we have a conflict. And
Yes,
if you don't mind, I'll just go through these quickly.
sure.
So determine whether the official that is participating in the decision has any of the following types of financial interests. Interest in business entities of 2,000 or more? No. Positions within a business organization where the official is an officer, director, partner, trustee, employee? No. Real property interests of 2,000 or more, and the decision falls into one or more of 12 categories. The answer is no. Sources of income of 500 or more provided or promised during the prior 12 months? No. Sources of gifts of 460 or more during the last 12 months? No. A personal financial effect on the official's income, assets, or liabilities of 250 or more during the last 12 months? No. There were assertions made that I have received political contributions from Athens. I have never received any political contributions from Athens, and those can be verified by my FPPC reports. There were assertions made that my son is a CFO. He is not now a CFO. He has never been a CFO for Athens Services. There were assertions made that my daughter is a senior accountant for Athens Services. My daughter previously worked for Athens Services. She was fired 2 years ago. And let's see. There is, in the response from FPPC, there is some verbiage in regards to gifts. And, I will say that I have taken a $52 box of See's candy from Athens Services every Christmas. I believe all of us have. And there is some verbiage in regards to the fact that I do receive holiday-related gifts from my son who works at Athens. However, from a financial perspective, I think the scales are kind of tipped in the other way as far as us giving he and his family gifts. I don't mean to be glib, but just to give some construct to the situation. So no, I do not believe I have a conflict. And as Mr. Jones indicated, I did not have a legal conflict when this contract was initially discussed back in 2017. However, at that time, I did choose to recuse based on the presumption of potential bias, only because Athens was new to the city at that time. And I did not believe I had a bias, but in the interest of being just very prudent, I chose to recuse at that time, although having had discussions with our city attorney in regards to Athens having a contract with us for these last several years, I have determined that there no longer is a bias because of my experience with them as they have served the city. Thank you.
And Dick, likewise, there was an assertion made as to whether or not I would be allowed to also take part in this particular item relative to, comments that were made. What about my situation?
Again, well, first off, let's in the broader context, what's before you this evening is a discussion with respect to direction of process. So the analysis is slightly different than if there was an actual contract in front of you in terms of weighing and analyzing whether there was an economic interest in that particular contract. In this particular discussion, the question is there an economic interest in selecting a process, which is a broader standard and not as specific. With respect to you individually, the question arose regarding campaign contributions. The law did change as of this year, and the Fair Political Practices Commission has weighed in with respect to campaign contributions. Commencing January 1 of this year, if you receive a campaign contribution of $250 or more, then for the following 1-year period, you have a conflict of interest. However, they determined that with respect to campaign contributions received by elected officials prior to December 31st, 2022, that those campaign contributions would not be a disqualifying factor, and therefore you could still participate. In this particular situation, you indicated you received the campaign contribution in the prior year, and therefore it meets the legal standards of the FPPC, indicating that it is not a disqualifying campaign contribution.
Yeah, thank you, Dick.
Okay,